So, we are here. Can you hear us? So, hi, welcome, and a pleasure to be here at the Things Conference 2023. So, my name is Afzal, and usually I do speeches and keynotes, but I guess Wieneke and the colleagues of the Things Conference are tired of my opinions by now, so now they asked me to moderate a panel session and ask a lot of questions rather than giving my own opinion. Yeah, so in a panel session, you also have to introduce yourself, right? So yeah, I already told that I'm Afzal. I work for iotCreators, which is a corporate startup, part of Deutsche Telekom, aka T-Mobile. And we are in both cellular IoT and LoRaWAN. And the topic for today, or for our session, is then also what happens in cellular IoT. But let's start with a quick introduction. Maybe you can all tell a bit about yourself. So starting with Ohad.
Sure, thank you, Afzal. Ohad Peled, I'm from Sony Semiconductor Israel Group. It's the group in Sony that designs chipsets for cellular IoT, so mainly LTE-M and narrowband IoT. Been there for a few years now and seeing the exciting progress there. And yeah, let's talk about what's wait for us.
Great. I'm Brandon Satrom. I am with Blues, where I've been for about the past 3.5 years. Blues is a hardware-focused SaaS company, focused primarily on simplifying connectivity across all kinds of different radio access technologies, including cellular, which we'll get to talk about today.
Hello, Bayuki. I'm from Semtech, Senior Director of the Services. I used to be Sierra Wireless.
Thank you.
Hello? Hello. Yeah. Now you will hear me better. So I'm Adrien Berliochi. I'm from Semtech. So I used to be Sierra Wireless. I'm the Senior Director for all services in EMEA. So I am here to show how Semtech integrates cellular technology and how we bridge LoRa with cellular. So I'm happy to talk with you here and happy to have a place for cellular in this session in this LoRa world.
Great, thanks for the intro. So since they gave me a mic today, let me at least drop one very binary black and white opinion here, okay? And then I'm going to ask you to react on that. So, I mean, something that we are not going to do is, because we grew up, we did that in the past, we were comparing LoRaWAN and cellular from a technology perspective, but we've learned by now that there is room for all. There are use cases for all, right? But let's look a bit at the companies who are driving these technologies. Yeah, on one hand, we have companies driving, or companies that have been driving LoRaWAN adoption. And when I talk about LoRaWAN adoption, what I mean to say is that we can solve so many problems with IoT, but we need to make the end customers, the market, aware about the possibilities, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean with driving LoRaWAN and cellular adoption. So you have the companies driving LoRaWAN adoption, the Things Industries, LoRa Alliance, the platform companies, DataCake, Akenza, Semtech, of course, did a great job. Yeah, you did an amazing job in driving LoRaWAN adoption. On the other hand, we have the cellular IoT companies, the mobile network operators, the semiconductors, And before I'm going to make my statement, I'm looking at this from the inside because I work for a mobile network operator, So semiconductors, the suppliers of telecom infrastructure like Nokia, Ericsson. And I believe that these guys have been doing a very bad job in driving cellular IoT adoption. So what do you think of that? Starting with you, Ohad.
Saying a bad job about ourselves is always a challenge. But I think...
but if you compare it to...
Yeah, no, in terms of comparison, I agree that the growth, and that's how it comes about from the platforms and the rest of the drivers of the LoRaWAN technology, is more evident. But to be honest, that there's very big differences between the two technologies and markets in general. Cellular is already an established technology. It's been around for years, very reliable. And in a way, the cellular IoT is sort of an add-on to that. And it uses existing infrastructures, while on the LoRaWAN side, it's bringing up your own infrastructure. And it's even more challenging in a way, right? Because you need to bring up the whole ecosystem together. which is in the cellular IoT or in the cellular space, it should be easier. I think that is true, but because the focus of cellular IoT or cellular in general is more around broadband, and it has been growing towards broadband for years now, the addition of IoT is not natural. And by that I mean the focus on as much data and much throughput as you can get. This is the focus of the mobile operators and everyone. And the IoT has a very different requirements, right? Quite the opposite. So I think on that sense, it's been a challenge for the ecosystem to work as a whole to bring up to the same level as LoRaWAN did. That's one aspect, and just a small other aspect here is that the LoRaWAN technology is open, but in the same time, it kind of concentrates around a few building blocks, and that allows you to produce a system, commercialize a system, and deliver a system that is much thoroughly tested and much easier to bring up. And the cellular space, so many players, so many big players, right? It's very hard to kind of come into an agreement and push it forward. So yes, but there are good reasons for that.
Do you agree?
I do agree. And I think even though there are good reasons, I don't think that I would take that as there's not anything that we can do. I think there is, and I think you would agree. There are plenty of good reasons, but there's also plenty of opportunity and plenty of things that we can learn from the LoRaWAN space that we could apply into cellular. I agree on a couple of different dimensions. One dimension that's near and dear to us at Blues is on the developer experience side. Yes, the mobile network operators have owed a lot of this, especially when it comes to how data on the network, basically your ability to send packets over the network is monetized by the mobile network operators. The classic way that I like to put it is 5 years ago, the way you got cell data was basically $5 or €5 a month. It was like like when we used to pay for MMS, right? In the early days of text messaging. That's the state of the art in IoT years ago, and that's not accessible to developers. When I first got in this space, what we would see is developers would prototype only on Wi-Fi, even if they knew they had to deploy on cellular because they didn't want to start the clock the moment that they turned that thing on. The other piece I kind of put on the side of the modem manufacturers, frankly, because the reality is that in cellular, if the state of the art is that you have to write AT commands circa 1983 to actually talk over a cell network, that's a problem. I actually believe very strongly that that is hostile to developers and developers' ability to actually very quickly work with a set of modern technologies. So yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think the thing to learn from the LoRaWAN community is accessible content that's geared towards developers, opportunities for developers to come together, incentives for developers even to bring devices and products online and to help each other develop this market together, I think is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, a point I would like to add is that the DNA of cellular is B2C, so that's also one of the key points. And for instance, we at Semtech, as a full MVNO, that's what we are doing, because it's in jungle of B2C compared to MNO. Everything we are doing is for B2B, so that's also how you can handle that for cellular.
So thanks. One thing that I've heard a couple of times, and I also agree with that, is that LoRaWAN, like, it was accessible starting from day one, right? Accessible to anyone. Yeah, and I also believe, and let me remind you again, we're talking about the adoption of technologies right now. Yeah, like a success of technology these days is defined by how many hobbyists and developers are working around it, right? So a reason why there are thousands of developers and hobbyists working on LoRaWAN, trying new stuff every day, is because it was accessible. Yeah. One reason. But then, I mean, we are in 2023 right now, and we have Blues. Mm-hmm. We have iotCreators. We have, what else do we have? We have Once. Mm-hmm. There are, and Nordic Semiconductor, mm-hmm. by the way, yeah, with the Thingy 91, Wood Electronic with the Sony Altair chip, which also made narrowband IoT and LTM very accessible to developers. Mm-hmm. So we have some initiatives out there. But still, if I look at developer communities, Discord, Reddit, like LoRaWAN is full, alive, and active, and cellular is still a bit. Why do you think? Yeah. What do we miss?
I think it all relates, right? I mean, it's the same, it's a different angle of the same problem. And the way I see it traditionally, and I think this is a very good point that you raised about the B2B and the B2C in the DNA of the cellular space. Again, being the cellular IT as an add-on to the existing ecosystem, the whole industry is used to certain types of customers. These customers, the device manufacturers, usually in the cellular world are the big companies, and they can invest quite a lot. And I think the notion of accessibility is vastly different between the cellular space and the likes of LoRa. So I'm coming from a different field of the indoor type technologies like BLE and Wi-Fi, and I can tell you that in the beginning, when you want to bring up your solution with Wi-Fi and BLE, you don't need to worry about connectivity. There's the API, there's the stack, and you start working with it. When you come into cellular, then you've got the whole provisioning stuff, security stuff, certification, which is absolutely mandatory in order to even get into this space. So I think if you look at the type of people who are playing around or have access to LoRaWAN versus the ones that had access to the cellular space, they are different in nature. You get many of the smaller scale players that LoRa is a great solution for them because it's so accessible and it's so easy to work with. But you get all the big guys kind of being able to get over the entry barriers of cellular, and this way they can also benefit from the cellular advantages, right? So this is kind of the trade-off I see, and I think in terms of building the ecosystem and, again, making this accessible, LoRaWAN has done a tremendous job, and I wish we can take some of it into the cellular space, but this should be an ecosystem play. Everyone needs to realize that, and everyone needs to be engaged in order to make this happen.
Okay, makes sense.
I absolutely agree. I think that the thing that's missing is in the cellular space that we aren't attempting to democratize access to these technologies. We're not attempting to make it as simple as possible. It actually made me think, as you guys were talking to, back in the early days of the things, that with their first Kickstarter campaign, they called this the People's Network. So from the beginning, the idea that this is the network for everybody, the network for the rest of us, the network for those that haven't been able to get things online otherwise. Even then, back in 2015, there was this attitude towards we need to make this accessible for everybody, accessible for all. And there are a lot of things that are mandatory. There are a ton of things that you have to do with every cellular device that you bring online. But there are things that vendors can do and are doing that make some of those decisions sensible defaults for you, so that when you get a device online, some of those boxes are already checked. You have the opportunity to get there much faster. And I think as we continue to focus on those kinds of things, we democratize access, we democratize the just appeal of cellular IoT for a lot of developers.
Yeah, I wanted to say, as we say yesterday, two things. First of all, yes, there is a lot of hurdle in cellular, but we make it simple for our customers. That's the key point that we do. It's our job to make it simple, because again, yeah, I agree with you that to become a full MVNO, there are lots of investment and there are lots of things to do, and that's not for all. And yeah, but we make it simple at the end of the day for our customer. The second thing is that, as we said yesterday when we were discussing for preparing this conference, I think it's not one technology versus the other, so everything is driven by the use case. So we at Semtech, the game changer is now that Semtech acquires Sierra Wireless, and the cellular, now when they are talking to us, we can be agnostic, so they know that we will take the best technology depending on the use case. So it's not one versus the other. And I think that's a game changer, because at the end of the day, the customer wants to have this use case and wants to connect the use case in the best way. And there is one use case for the technology and the other for the other one.
Is that then also the reason why Semtech entered the world of cellular?
Yes, that's one of the key reasons. So it's in terms of TAM. So if you look at the TAM that we can access, so we dramatically increase our TAM. So that's really one of the key reasons why what it has been done.
And how is it going so far? Because it already has been more or less a year, right? Are you already meeting the expectations? Because there were some reasons and some triggers to move from LoRaWAN only to cellular.
That's the reason why I'm there, that in terms of product and so on, so it's too early to announce, so I have no new product to announce how we made the technology and so on. what we are doing is merging the ecosystem. So this morning I was pitching the referral program because I say, hey, you are on the LoRa space, you have maybe a need of a cellular, so you don't know how to address it. So we can address it with our referral program. So it was an idea in order to make the two worlds cohabitating. From a product perspective, you need to wait a little bit. So that's a
Okay, so I know it's about the use case, yeah, and the customer problem, but I'm a technology enthusiast, so I'm still going to ask the question, will there be a chip for LoRaWAN and narrowband IT?
On that one, it's a good try. You tried yesterday, but I will not answer. I will not answer the question now.
Okay, thanks. So another interesting thing that I've learned yesterday is that Blues, who also started actually in cellular, you also made an entrance in LoRaWAN, right? Like
Yes.
the other way around.
Yes, yeah.
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 Can you tell a bit about that?
Absolutely. We are seeing this concept, and you guys talked about it already. When we talk to customers about use cases, we recognize that there is no one-size-fits-all radio access technology. And one of the things that I observed pretty early on in the IoT space was that we tended to get into what I like to call the rat wars, right? We would talk about sort of one rat versus the other, LoRaWAN versus cellular versus Wi-Fi versus what have you. And the reality is that that was always a false equivalency, this idea that one is just fully better than another for every single use case. It's about the actual deployment. And we talked to lots of customers that looked at cellular, they loved the business model, they loved the product, but they're putting connectivity into a smoke detector. And so the economics don't work in adding cellular to the BOM of a lower cost device. And so what we launched earlier this week is a LoRa note card that's in the same form factor as our other products, as our cellular and Cell plus Wi-Fi products, but that works with the Things network, that still gets all that data routed into our cloud service, because that's sort of the way that we look at it is that it's device to cloud, right? The messy middle piece of connectivity for us is from the edge of the network to the edge of your cloud service. And giving customers the ability to have a single set of devices across access technologies that then can route to a single cloud service that then go to their ultimate data cake is one of my favorites when it comes to building dashboards for command and control, or another product of your own in your own cloud. That was something that our customers had continued to ask us for, and so that's what we announced this week. And we're really excited to be in this space again because we think there's so much opportunity across all of the IoT, and LoRa is definitely a big piece of that.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that because it's. I think I fully agree with the concept. The customer in the end does not care how his data is being
Absolutely.
Transmitted to the cloud, right? He cares about battery lifetime, he cares about reliability, he cares about maybe throughput, timings, but he doesn't care about all the rest. So I think in that sense, what you guys are doing is a very good thing to kind of rid the customer from those questions and really difficult technical considerations. Yeah.
So 2 questions to you, actually. One surprise question. The other one, you already know. So the first one is, what have you seen when it comes to, you've seen a lot of IoT use cases already, right? And you have some experience. So what are exactly those use cases where cellular IoT was the better option than LoRaWAN? And the second question is, since this is not the first time that I see you on the Things conference as Sony Altair, do you have any plans as Sony Altair to do something in LoRaWAN?
Okay, let me start with the first one. I like what you try to do here. So in terms of use cases, first of all, there's more than just cellular and LoRa. There's a bunch of other protocols as well that might fit certain use cases. I think there's certain overlap. There are some use cases where both could work, and then it becomes more of a question of total cost of ownership and how are you equipped to kind of deliver your product. But on the technical level, I would say one of the most evident ones is trackers, where you want to track a certain parcel or a package across a continent, and to get this type of connectivity, setting up the LoRaWAN infrastructure all the way is not practical. So this is one very obvious use case where this works. And the other, it all kind of relates to coverage one way or another. because in the end, you need to own the infrastructure and the network in the LoRaWAN case, and you kind of offloads this to the public networks on the cellular side, and just a distinction here, right? There's the public and private networks in both sides. So there's, on the LTE side, there's a starting trend around the private LTE networks, and in the LoRa is already big, and there's also public networks using LoRa. But I think it's kind of the opposite ratio today. I don't know what would happen in the future, but today it's kind of the opposite. So if your preference is going to public networks, so that would be a point for cellular. And if you prefer to keep your own private network, I would say that this is more of a LoRa thing. And of course, the use case itself, and how much do you want to cover, what's the area, what's the region, you know, so on. So those are the type of consideration, I would say. But yeah, I would say trackers or large-scale deployments that are not necessarily owned by you is something where cellular works better. To your other question, I'd say next. No, that's kidding. I think there's a lot of room to work together. We've been in touch with Sierra Wireless for years now, so it only makes sense that we discuss this. This type of technology fusion is something that we're big believers in. Just for example, our next generation product, the ALT1350, not only it brings a new bar in the industry for power consumption for battery-operated devices, but it also provides a multi-connectivity platform. So it's not only cellular. Cellular is one part, but we also added there a sub-gigahertz transceiver, for example, and also the capability to get even positioning based on Wi-Fi for indoor type of use cases, right? So I think it only makes sense that everything merges in the end. I cannot testify for any concrete plans at the moment, and I think this would be driven largely by the market. This acquisition is definitely a big step in this journey.
Cool. I'm excited.
Yeah, me
so,
too.
Very last question to all of you, starting with Adrien. How is it going with cellular IoT today?
Sorry?
How is it going with cellular IoT today? How is the state of the market?
Okay. I would like to answer the questions that you had. The first question, I will answer the first question. I think regarding use case, what we see is, for me, is mission critical. That's the point of for cellular where it comes is really if you really need to be always on. This is where it comes to cellular. How it is nowadays. If I am here today, I made the conference this morning. It was just that if people can take away that Semtech is a full MVNO, that's something that is not obvious for everyone. And what does it mean to be a full MVNO? That's the point number one. And the point number two is that this referral program that we made in order to bridge the gap between the two worlds and to make the people from the LoRa ecosystem, if they have any cellular need, they could make money easy on it. So before talking of technology, let's talk about money. That was the point of the day.
Thanks.
So how's it going in cellular IoT? It is better than ever, but we have a long way to go. We absolutely will get to where we need to go, but we're going to have to do it together. I think that's actually one of my favorite parts about being in the space. And I say it's better than ever because we have come a long way, but we recognize that there are still billions upon billions of opportunities when it comes to connecting devices. And things like this event, like us being on this stage together, are just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what we need to do together. But I'm excited. I've never been more excited to be in a space than here right now doing this.
I agree, and I really like the part where we're kind of shifting from seeing LoRaWAN and cellular IoT as competition, because I think in the end, yeah, there's some overlap, but there's still, as you said in the beginning, a room for everyone. And how's the cellular IoT going? I'd say this stage is, for me, it's super exciting. Because maybe we could have been or predicted to be in more volume in terms of numbers, but as anything you start doing, and there are already tens and hundreds of millions of units of cellular IoT in the field. It depends how you define it. When you start doing, you find the issues, you find the problems, and now we're in the stage where we need to kind of fix certain parts to make it better and to make it more accessible, as we discussed. and to basically realize the full potential of the cellular IoT.
Cool. Thanks a lot. You made me very optimistic. And main message to all of you, if you have LoRaWAN products, talk to us, because there is enough room and enough opportunities for cellular IoT. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
all.
Thank you.